So one of the key differences between perfectly competitive firms and firms that have some market power, of which monopoly is the most extreme case, is that if firms with market power, by definition, when we say market power, we mean that they have some control over their price, that they face a downward sloping demand curve for their product. So unlike perfect competition, the firm could raise their price and not lose all of their customers. Or if they wanted to sell more, they're going to have to lower their price in order to sell more. So that is a key difference between having some market power and being in a perfectly competitive market. And the result of that, the result of having this downward sloping demand curve, is now price and marginal revenue aren't the same thing anymore. In perfect competition, it was like every unit you sold for the market price and your revenue went up by that. So marginal revenue and price were by definition the same thing. When firms have market power, like monopoly, they have a downward sloping demand curve for their product. For a monopolist, it is the market demand because the monopolist is the only seller in the market. But all of this about the relationship between price and marginal revenue is true for any firm that faces a downward sloping demand curve for their product. Any firm that has some market power. So here's the demand curve, and as we can see, we can calculate total revenue, which we know is price times quantity. If you don't make anything, you don't make any revenue. If you make 1 unit and sell it for $18, you make $18 of revenue. You make 2 units, your revenue gets bigger. You make 3 units, your revenue gets even bigger. As you sell more stuff, your revenue is going up. We can graph total revenue down here and say, if I don't make anything, of course I don't make any money. If I make 1 unit, my revenue is 18. Okay, so I'm graphing with quantity on the horizontal axis. If I make 2 units, my total revenue is 30. And if I make 3 units, my total revenue is up to 36. So my total revenue is going up and up and up and up and up. Which makes sense, right? You make more stuff, you make more money. But as we can see, if I make 4 units instead of 3, I'm still only making $36. And if I make 5 units, my total revenue falls. If I make 6 units, if I show up to market with 6 units, I'm only going to, if I'm assuming I'm a single price monopolist, which we're assuming now, we're selling all of our units for the same price. We'll relax that assumption later. But if I'm a single price monopolist, if I want to sell 6 units, I have to charge a price of $3. And so my total revenue is only going to be $18. I would have been better off only bringing 5 units to market, selling those for a price of $6 each, and my revenue would have been $30. My total revenue would have been higher if I had sold fewer units. And so you can see the marginal revenue now is not the price that you're selling the additional unit for. There's 2 things going on. Yes, you're selling that marginal unit for additional money. So we're gaining, when we sell that 6th unit, we gain $3 from selling that 6th unit, but we also lose all this money, all this revenue, because we're dropping price on those 5 units that we could have sold for $6. So our marginal revenue, remember, which is how our total revenue changes as our output changes, we can see here, we can just calculate the numbers pretty easily. 0, -6, -12. Excuse me. So that's just showing us how our total revenue changes. So we can calculate it that way, but it's important to sort of understand where marginal revenue comes from and why it's not the same thing as price. So for that 6th unit, we'll sell that 6th unit for a price of $3. So marginal revenue is the price we sell the marginal unit for. But then at the same time, so that's $3. But then at the same time, in order to sell 6 units, we have to drop our price to $3. So we could sell 5 units for $6 each, or 6 units for $3 each. So if we want to sell 6 units, we have to drop our price. We're losing $3 on 5 units. So yeah, we gain $3 from selling that 6th unit, but by bringing 6 units to market, we lose $15 in that red shaded area. That's this area here. And so our revenue actually goes down. We're selling more units and our revenue actually goes down. So you can see marginal revenue. Let's look at another one up here, going from the second to the third unit. Marginal revenue is price minus, well, it's price plus, but this is a negative. How price changes when quantity changes. If we wanted to write it out in formula form, the marginal revenue is always the price you sell the marginal unit for minus, because this is always a negative, if you sell more, it's driving down the price, minus what you lose because in order to sell more, you're dropping price on all those Q0 units. So this was the change in price on those 5 units you could have sold at a higher price. So in this case, going from 2 units to 3 units, the price of the marginal unit is $12, the price of that 3rd unit. So if I sell that 3rd unit, going from 2 units to 3 units, if I sell that 3rd unit, I get $12. Yay! I get that $12, the price of that additional unit. But in order to sell 3 units instead of 2 units, I had to drop the price by $3. So plus -3, I dropped the price by $3 on those 2 units I could have sold for more. So I gain 12, but I lose 6, and net my revenue goes up by $6. Marginal revenue is no longer the same thing as price because the firms face this downward sloping demand curve. Because as you increase your output, it drives down the price you can charge for everything. So this isn't a different concept than we learned in perfect competition. It's not like, oh, marginal revenue is something entirely different, and over there it equals price and over here it doesn't. This is always what marginal revenue is. The difference is that in perfect competition, that term equals 0. Right? In perfect competition, there is no change in price when you change your output. If you produce more stuff, price just stays the same. So this term is 0, so that whole term is 0. So in perfect competition, marginal revenue just equals price. Because then that's the key. It's in perfect competition, when you produce more and produce more, you have no effect on the market price. But if you've got a downward sloping demand curve for your product, if you've got some market power, then when you produce more stuff, it's going to drive down the price you can charge for everything. So you gain because you're selling that unit for whatever the market, that marginal unit for the market price, but you lose revenue because you're driving down price and everything. So marginal revenue is always the price you sell the marginal unit for minus what you lose because you're dropping price on everything else. And so if we wanted to graph that, typically we graph our marginals to emphasize that their change. It's between 0 and 1. Marginal revenue is 18. Between 1 and 2, it's 12. Between 2 and 3, it's 6. Between 3 and 4, it's 0. We make the same revenue whether we sell 3 at $12 or 4 at $6. Between 4 and 5, it's gone negative. So marginal revenue looks like that. It's still positive. When marginal revenue is positive, total revenue is increasing. When marginal revenue hits 0, total revenue is maximized. And then after that, as you're selling more and more, dropping price lower and lower and lower, eventually to sell 7 units, you'd have to drop the price to 0. So your total revenue actually is parabolic like that. So that's the demand curve at any quantity lies above the marginal revenue curve. The demand curve shows the price you can sell for. The marginal revenue curve shows how much your revenue actually goes up. And so we're going to use the marginal revenue to see how much output we should produce, the golden rule of profit maximization, but then the demand curve will tell us the price we can sell that for. And that's what we'll see in our next video.